Hello everybody, this is Van Stewart.
And this is Jen Stewart.
And welcome to our second video on our travel channel. Today is January 5th, 2025. And we talked before about how we wanted to take you guys with us as we revisited some of our travels and look forward to travels in the future. But I wanted to title today's video, Before You Go. There's so many things to do before you even leave your home. I want to really sit down and talk about some of the thought processes and things that go into planning a trip, either out of your country or out of your state. Now, Jennifer, when we first started talking about traveling places and going around the world, what were your thoughts on where you wanted to go and your thinking behind why you wanted to do that?
The number one destination for me was Africa, based on my heritage. So I had always had a yearning, I guess, to want to go back to Africa, but never really saw it as a possibility. And having raised kids, other things took priorities. And so as we began to think about marriage and the possibility of a honeymoon, Africa was my number one destination. How about you?
And that was the same thing for me. I've always felt a strong draw to Africa, but I always wanted to travel more anyway. Being from Chicago, a lot of Chicagoans never leave their neighborhood. There was a saying when I was in school, we had a saying where one of the teachers talked about never going past Madison Street, which is a street downtown Chicago. He had never gone beyond Madison his entire life. I didn't want to be that kind of guy. So I wanted to see more of the world and see places, especially Africa was one on my bucket list, and I was glad we got a chance to go there. But when we think about traveling, it's really good to research the place. We had ideas of where we wanted to go. We wanted to make sure we did a lot of good research. And honestly, the best place to start research is what you're doing right now on YouTube. Jennifer, how many videos do you think we saw on YouTube?
Several, maybe even hundreds. If you remember, first we thought about Ghana as being one of our destinations. And so we watched many videos on Ghana, and it was an interesting process to really get to see the number of sites and things like that. But as we looked into other things as far as like a budget and aspects such as that, weather and all those sort of things, we took a different turn.
Yeah, it's good to really think about that. When you talk about a vacation or even a getaway anywhere, how much money and how much time do you have to invest in this? And visa programs. Different countries have different visa programs. I know when we looked into the Ghana program, there were some weird things with how you got the visa, which have since changed, I found out recently. But at that time, it was really kind of tricky to get a visa into Ghana. In Nigeria as well, they had some things that you had to do to get a visa, which were kind of unique. We opted to go to Kenya for our first visit. Kenya's visa program, their e-visa was very simple. You got online, filled out a form, paid your fee, and they emailed you back your visa in about a day. So we knew we were okay to go there in roughly a day. All they really wanted to see was where were you going to stay during your visit there, hotel accommodations or Airbnb, and did you have a round trip ticket? They didn't want you coming there and deciding that obviously I don't want to go home. So they wanted to make sure you had round trip tickets and airfare back to your destination. That was a big thing. But it's good to research other parts of your visit too. Weather. If you're going someplace during bad weather seasons, you might not be able to see a lot of sights. We've gone to Puerto Rico, and there was one part of the year where they said it rained a lot. So when we learned that fact, we kind of diverted our plans so we could be there when there wasn't as much rain, we could see more. And festivals that are going on. If you go to Rio de Janeiro during Carnival, you're going to be with a lot of people, and that may impact your ability to get around, your mobility, and just the cost of things too. So think about that. There's a funny story where Jennifer and I were traveling, this is some years ago, coming back from Texas. We were driving, and we decided to go through New Orleans. We forgot it was Mardi Gras time. We got stuck in traffic in Mardi Gras. I mean, half the roads are blocked off. You can't get anywhere. So our short trip took us hours because we were turned around due to the fact that we didn't investigate when we were going through the area. So look at that. Look at those things. And pricing for lodging and airfare, start looking at that stuff early. Hotel prices can change dramatically during the time of year. If you want to travel during Christmas season, you're going to pay a lot of money in certain areas. You want to travel during the heavy tourist season, you're going to pay a lot of money. So just look at that stuff and be aware that it could cost you extra if you do that. Now, one thing that Jennifer and I did not do when we first started traveling, and it's something in hindsight we probably should have done, is travel insurance, medical insurance. Jennifer, you want to talk about that for a bit?
I always like to be safe and have my ducks in a row, but since we were fairly new travelers, we didn't get the health insurance, at least for the trip. We did have the insurance for the trip, but not the health
insurance
piece. So as we have investigated travel and watched other people who do videos, some of them got into predicaments that I don't plan that we will, but we do like to plan ahead. And so in the future, when we travel, we definitely will get the health insurance that you can also get in addition to travel insurance. So that's just something to consider and put on your list and determine if that's something that's feasible for you and your family.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and promote one company versus another. There are many companies that do this. You can look into that, but the prices I saw were really, really cheap, like a couple of dollars a day. So something that can protect you in the event something happens for a couple of bucks a day, that's worth it. And we saw people on YouTube videos who have gotten mugged outside of the country. Some people have gotten sick overseas. One guy we saw in, I forget what country he was in, he got mugged, had to get stitches, took him to the hospital. It was like over $1,000 for like 4 stitches. So if you can save yourself some money and some grief by having travel insurance or medical emergency insurance, it's probably worth having. Another thing too we saw, I love to eat. I'm a foodie. So you have to really be careful when you go out in other countries and other areas as far as street foods and even drinks. Some places don't have really good water filtration systems and water purification systems. So if you're drinking water in foreign countries, some people get a lot of IBS, irritable bowel syndromes, or they might get diarrhea, something like that. So just be cautious. And when I talk about drinks, that includes ice. So if you get a bottled drink and you put ice in it, and the ice was made from tap water, you still can get sick. So be careful about that. So street foods, ice, and water in foreign countries, just be really, really careful about those things. A lot of folks forget about the ice cube things. I know we did too. We were very lucky. We didn't have any issues like that, but it could have happened. We've been lots of places, and we'll talk about some of the places in future videos where we can really digress and get into the details. But we've been really lucky that that has not happened to us. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is safety while traveling. We've always traveled together, which is a good thing. A lot of people are solo travelers, and sometimes you're solo female travelers. Really just be careful. Keep your head on a swivel. One of the old sayings my dad always taught me, look around. Keep an eye on your surroundings. If people are following you, just be really leery about that. And I know in some places people love to steal your devices, your cell phones. And if they see you walking around with a cell phone in your hand and you're taking pictures, you're not paying attention to what's around you. They can grab that phone and take off, and before you know it, your phone's gone. And on most of our phones, we have our financial information. You've got your credit card numbers, things like that. They can go in there and open up your Zelle and give themselves a nice little free Christmas gift. So be careful about protecting your devices when you're out. Now, same thing happens on your hotel or your lodging, your Airbnb or your hotel. If you stay in a hotel, to me, I always felt like there was an added layer of security in a hotel. It's going to be a little harder for somebody to get into a hotel and get into your room and into your safe. But in an Airbnb, do you have that extra level of protection? I don't know. Something you have to look into. Some Airbnbs are pretty safe, but some you don't know who stayed there before you, or you don't know if there's an additional key floating around, or you're just not aware of that. So be really careful. We tend to stay at large chain hotels, Marriott's and Hilton's when we travel, so it's a little bit, to me, a little extra level of comfort that's there. But be aware of that too. And the same thing when you're going around the areas, have your wallet in a safe place. Most people put their wallets, most guys I know put our wallet in our back pocket. Is that the best place to put your wallet? Probably not. People bump into you, and when they bump into you, they can easily pick your pocket. Or a fanny pack might be better. Some people have backpacks, which are great, but if you have a backpack on and somebody bumps into you from behind, you'll never know they're going into your backpack. So have a fanny pack perhaps, or just keep enough money on you while you're out and about, and keep your ID, your passport, and your other things in your safe in your hotel or your Airbnb. Something to think about. Best thing to do, just be safe. Don't have all your money on you at one time either. Somebody picks your pocket, you have all your money, then you're broke. That's never good. Some places, if you're in other countries where they might have, when I was in London, they didn't have a Chase bank where I was, but they had a bank that was affiliated with Chase, and I could go in there and get some money out, which was good. But just be aware of that when you travel, that you don't want to ever be stuck anywhere without money or access to your money. Now, here's the next part that is really kind of unique, driving. Now we've been in other parts of the world. We've been in other states as well. I consider Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, but it's almost like you're out of the country when you're there. And in Puerto Rico, I did not have a driver. We rented a car and I drove. The roads are pretty similar to what you're used to in America. People drive on the same side of the road, just like here. So it was pretty much consistent. It wasn't anything that I felt uncomfortable doing. The quality of some streets were a little shady, but for the most part, we felt safe. And Kenya was a bit different. The people in Africa, I want to say this in the best positive light, the driving is very unique. People tend to drive recklessly, and if you're not aware of where you're going or the speed, or stoplights are kind of like suggestions, not rules. So be prepared for that. We were lucky we hired a driver when we were in Kenya, and it was great because he knew everything. He knew where to go. He knew shortcuts. He was very, very helpful. It was very comfortable for us to have a driver. So if you can afford a driver, do that. And one of the great things about Kenya was the exchange rate. And we were in Kenya, I think it was $1 US was 140 Kenya shillings. That's awesome. And we'll talk about some of the things that go into that as well. But your dollar goes a lot further in countries like that when you have that kind of exchange bump in the US dollar. I think right now in Kenya, it's about 3-1. In Ghana, 3-1. In Kenya, it's about 145-1 right now. So it depends on where you go. But just be aware that as you travel, that you can get a nice bang for your buck if the US dollar is pretty strong over there. Now, speaking of money, this is something I learned from my African friends when I lived in Pennsylvania many years ago. Something called a Mazunga tax. I said, what is a Mazunga tax? What does that even mean? Basically, it's a tax that is assessed to foreigners because you're a foreigner and you can pay more. They figure you have resources and that you're just rich. In other countries, people think all Americans are wealthy.
Correct.
I had a guy tell me years ago that in America, everybody has 4 houses and 3 wives. Don't know why he thought that, but he thought that. So I told him, I said, no, that's not the way it goes. But in foreign places, they will charge you more, especially if they know you're an American, because they think Americans just have the resources to pay more. When we were in Kenya, we went to the safari. The safari was $25 for a U.S. adult to enter. It was 250 Kenya shillings for a Kenyan to enter. That's $1.50. So we paid $25 to get in. They paid $1.50. That's just the way it is. You look at that different ways. Some places you go, you can kind of haggle about the prices and try to talk them down. But things like that, the prices are pretty much set. You're going to pay that price, and it is what it is. And you're helping out the locals, so I look at it as just something to do to be nice, to help out the local people. As a tourist, you want to do that. But in some places, it can really become annoying. We went to a gift shop, and the prices were very different for us than for other people who were there. It was a lot different. I didn't realize that. I just thought, wow, this stuff's expensive at the gift shop. People behind you are paying like 1/10 of what we paid. I think I spent like $300 in a gift shop when we first got there, and I probably bought $20 worth of stuff. But, you're helping out the locals, so think of it that way. You're doing some good things. And when you're driving or walking around, people will come at you to sell you everything. Just be ready. And be aware of your surroundings, as I said earlier. Don't have your wallet, or don't ever count money in public. If you have a wad of money, you're counting money in public. And I'm guilty of this. I've done this before. She's gotten over for counting money in public. If people see you take out your wallet and you're counting money, the prices will dramatically change really quickly as they see how much you've got. So don't do that. And for your safety too, don't count money in public. People will snatch it and run. Unless you're really fast. I'm not as fast as I once was. I'm not going to chase anybody down the streets of Kenya. But just be careful about that as you travel around. And as I said, you can haggle on pricing someplace. Now, if you're at the grocery store, you're not. If you're at ShopRite, the price is the price. You're going to pay that. But if you're at a market or a mall, she bought some really cool fabrics when we were in Africa. And the prices changed as you tend to walk away. So you might want to try that. Just say, well, no, thank you. I'll look at the shop down the road. Suddenly the prices will get a lot better when you do that.
If you're thrifty, though, what's another tool or strategy you could use?
If you're thrifty,
yeah,
ask your wife. That's what I do. Just ask the wife.
One thing that's great that I've found helpful is your driver. Of course, you want to support, the economy and help wherever you are if you're vacationing. But sometimes if you're purchasing food or other items, you can ask your driver and they will gladly buy something or purchase something for you at a less price. So I think that's one strategy you might try to use.
That's a good tip. And the good thing about having a driver like we had, he knew the area so well. We wanted to go and visit some places, some good restaurants. We didn't know. We really didn't do a lot of research on this trip before we went. So having a local driver helped us immensely. He took us to a club. He got us in. We had a great table. We had drinks. We bought him some drinks. We had a great time. But knowing a local that knows the areas really well, and he can save you lots of money. Like she said, he can kind of haggle those prices down and get you places. He had us, went to a restaurant for dinner, a place that he recommended was really great. So knowing that stuff is a really big benefit. Having somebody who knows the area can only help you. Now, one thing I don't want to really forget, because this is something I think a lot of people are bad about doing. I do this as well. Social media is great. When you're going on a trip, you want to get and tell everybody, get on social media, hey, I'm going to Germany, or I'm going here, I'm going there. Be careful about broadcasting details on your travel. If I were a bad person and I wanted to rob somebody and I knew they were going to be gone for 2 weeks in another country, boy, that's a great opportunity for me to go by their house and go do some shopping. So just be careful about that. When you come back, you can tell people you had a great time in this country or that, but you might not want to broadcast on Facebook or Instagram that you're going to be gone for 2 weeks in a country far, far away. Or if you're going to do that, we have great neighbors here where we live, and our neighbors know about our details of our travel. So if something looks weird, they're going to reach out to us really quickly or call some authorities and say, hey, somebody's over at the Stewart's house and they're out of the country. So just be aware of that. Be really careful about that. People are listening to you all the time, no matter where you go. Now, there's one of those stories that I have to share with you guys, too, about safety when you're traveling. This is something that happened to us in Germany. And I think Jennifer was actually asleep when this started. We were preparing to land in...
First leg of our flight.
First leg of our flight in Frankfurt, Germany. The first leg. I was really excited because it was our first international trip together a few years ago. And as we were descending to the airstrip, the plane started ascending again. I thought, that's weird. Why are we going back up? And I saw the stewardess in German really freaking out. I'm like, what is she yelling about? My German's really poor, as you probably know. But she was really freaking out. And then they started telling us to put our heads between our knees and prepare for an emergency landing. I'm like, what's going on? I look out the window and I see that we've diverted from the airstrip and we're going out toward a field. And there are fire trucks following the plane. I'm thinking, boy, this isn't good. I said, honey, let me wake her up. Because I'm thinking we can't have a crash on our first flight as a married couple. That'd be really bad. Later on, we found out that the pilot said that on his dash, the landing gear looked as if it was stuck closed. So he had no landing gear, so he couldn't land. So they're preparing to do a belly flop land in a field nearby. That's why they have the emergency ambulances and devices, all the trucks and the fire trucks come follow us over there. It was wrong. The gear was working, but his display showed it was not working. Panicked us all, but luckily everything worked out okay. But that would have been a really bad first flight, and I doubt you'd have us talking about travel trips after something like that. It goes to say about the emergency insurance, get it. Get it. It's worth having. It's had something happen to us. Glad it didn't, but had something happen, I'm sure that Lufthansa would have taken care of us, but you never know. It's best to have that insurance in hand in case you need that. But do you recall that incident?
Yes, a little nerve-wracking. Several prayers were said during that time, but I had faith, so
it was
here
fun.
we are.
It was fun. And the weird thing about that, there were about a dozen other couples celebrating their honeymoon on that flight. So we were talking as we drove back to the main airport, like, oh my gosh, this could have been a really, really bad day for a lot of married couples. But it turned out okay. And we're going to talk about some of the things we saw in Germany, which we were there. Germany was great. I love Germany. And we stayed there for a few days before we moved on to Kenya. So there's going to be a lot more cool travel videos to come. But I really wanted to get you guys to know about things to do before you even leave your home. Research, be safe, prepare for a trip, and have a great time. And like I said, if you have good neighbors, reach out to them and let them know you're going to be leaving. There's more to come, folks. Get ready for more videos of our travels, more pictures, and more info from us. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.